Discord has gone down. So I think we're safe to go ahead and get started. So just briefly before I let Nick take the floor, Nick and Kaylin, I want to just do some housekeeping stuff. So let me pull up the slides. Right? And just tune in. I mean, the slides aren't strictly necessary if you guys just want to listen to me, but welcome to Game Dev Club week 9. 1 week away from the last week, 1 week from Dead Week. So that's 9. Just wanted to make one announcement. It's some pretty big news. The long-awaited winter break jam that we've been teasing. I have a little bit more information on it. So the things that we know as of this moment is it's going to be a special experimental long game jam that is going to be like more of like an endurance test than a sprint like the normal weekend jams are. We're planning to have it run the entire 2.5 weeks of winter break, just trying to maintain persistent game dev activity over the break. We plan to announce the theme December 21st, so that would be the Monday, I think, after finals week ends. And after we announce that theme, you'll have the entire 2.5 weeks up until January 6th. That is the first Wednesday of the quarter to build out your games. Again, it's more like an endurance test than a sprint. But yeah. And then the other thing is that, yes, your benevolent officers are planning on selecting a theme that we think will fit the, the spirit of this upcoming 2.5 week jam. So stay tuned for that. And with that being said, I want to give as much time to Nick and Kaylin as possible. So without further ado, please turn your attention to Nick, and we're going to talk about aggro crabs or whatever, game development in general, founding your indie studio, whatever they want to talk about. And
whatever.
I'm excited. So, Nick, take the floor.
All right. Thanks, Cameron. So before I get into it, I kind of want to clear one thing up, which is this is the Nick talk, not the Nick and Kaylin talk, even though Kaylin might be lurking here. I was officially invited, so for all intents and purposes, Kaylin, you're a member of the audience, even though he is the co-founder of AgroCrab Games.
Yeah, so that's a double-edged sword. You don't get to blame me for Nick's lack of preparation.
Wait, Nick, real quick, could you try turning off your video? Because I think that's limiting the number of people that are able to join this Discord channel.
Really? Yeah, sure thing.
Oh, wait. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think that fixed it.
Really? Can more people join now? That's actually a bummer because I did want to be on video, but
yeah, it changed the cap from 25 to 99. So.
Oh, crazy! Video chat isn't available. Oh, okay, yeah. That is understandable. Oh, what if I share? Can I share my screen?
You can, yeah.
Okay. Wait, big play. Camera app on Windows.
It's gonna share like OBS.
It's gonna be so.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that working? Is that working?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's crazy. I just hacked the planet. Well, someone is through a locker down a flight of stairs, but okay, maybe I should start over because it seems like people are joining. Hello? I need someone to unmute and just tell me if I'm good to go. Because
you're good to go.
Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay, thank you. So let me start over real quick. Yeah, I'm Nick. Hi, co-founder of AgroCrab Games. With me today here is Kaylin, who is not going to say anything. And
fuck you.
I guess there we go. And I guess the second thing I want to preface this with is I really didn't prepare anything for this talk because I've been kind of crunching on an update for Going Under with Kaylin because we're really trying to wrap this project up by the end of the year. That being said, I know you guys have a lot of questions that I can hopefully answer or shed some light on. But first off, I might as well just give you kind of my backstory and the backstory of the studio. Sound good? Just here, first off, a question for you guys. How's fall quarter going? How is quarantine school treating everyone?
Yikes.
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 That's all.
Yeah.
That's all we
Yeah,
got.
that's
see
a good
better.
description.
I'm really sorry to hear that, everyone. Yeah, Lily is in grad school right now at UW, and it seems like a similar boat. So it sucks. We'll get through it. How many of you guys are freshmen? Like, this is your first experience at Game Dev Club. Anyone?
Yeah.
Yeah? Right on. Just one? You guys gotta do more marketing.
Well, I'm also a freshman, but I've been part of game. Well, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. That's
I
two.
know some new members in here. Definitely last game jam.
Okay. That's great to hear. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
I will say, Game Dev Club is one of the best parts of UW, one of the best clubs at UW, and that can mostly be directly attributed to me, because I am.
Oh wow, kind of true.
Turns out, I don't know how many of you know this, but I am kind of one of the founding fathers of Game Dev Club. If there was a Mount Rushmore of Game Dev Club, I think it would be like me, Shiny,
Andrew.
Andrew, Jose.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, cool. That would be it. Now, I didn't found Game Dev Club. It was actually founded by Shiny, a legendary game dev. But I kind of brought it back from. I kind of revived it from its low point. I remember my freshman.
Not to be confused with Shine.
Is Shine someone else?
I
Shine is a
am
current
someone else,
officer.
yes. I
Oh,
am not
what's up,
Shiny.
Shine? No, you're not on Mount Rushmore yet. But yeah, I mean, I remember my freshman year of Game Dev Club. My freshman year was what, 2013? That's crazy. Oh my god, that's so long ago. Maybe 2014, but yeah, it was just like me and my friend. At the time, were the only officers, because I think at the end of last year, like, everyone who founded the club was graduating. The club was still super small, and they were just like, okay, who wants to be the next president? And I raised my hand, which is my first lesson. Raise your hand. Take opportunities when they come. And then it was just like, okay, what do we want to do next quarter? And we, put up flyers around school, and the first quarter was like, okay, let's do a game jam and just put people in random groups. And it was kind of a shit show, but it's evolved into what is now today like way more organized and sophisticated and like a community than anything I could have hoped for. I haven't checked in with the club in a while, not since maybe a year or two ago when you guys still had in-person stuff, but I've been really proud to see where it's gone outside of the stuff that I did. The work that other people put in has been monumental. So round of applause for Game Dev Club, yes.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. So there we go. So and it's, I guess I'll say that my game dev journey began at Game Dev Club, right? I had, I guess, done a little bit in high school. I'd always been into art, but learned programming, I guess, senior year of high school. And I made like a little Fire Emblem game. I've been a game dev forever though. I went to like DigiPen summer camps. This is like the nerdiest thing. They're like 2-week camps to make games. So I've like had such a leg up, and such a head start on making games, and I think that's important to mention, because not everyone gets that and has to start in college or have other responsibilities on their plate. But that was me. I've always been making games, and basically midway through my second year, wait, was this before I was president? I think it must have been. Yeah, before I was president of Game Dev Club, I'm just chilling one day, sitting in class, sitting in the club, working on a game, and this dude shows up who's like the most frat bro looking, like, I guess that's the simplest way to put it. This guy Tyler, he shows up. He's like straight out of the business major. He's hanging out at Game Dev Club one day. Obviously, business majors are welcome. Frat bros are welcome to the club. But he wasn't a game dev, right? Like he wasn't from that space. But he came through, and he's like pitching the club on this game idea for Will Ferrell, the actor Will Ferrell, because apparently his PR rep reached out to Tyler and was like, hey, Will Ferrell wants someone to make a video game for him. And Tyler, being the entrepreneurial spirit he is, like brought that to the club and was like, okay, I'm gonna get someone to help me make this game for Will Ferrell. And I think really quickly he found out that no one in the club really cared about that or wanted to do it. But I talked to him for a bit and we kind of clicked. And one thing led to like us just jamming that weekend on a video game where you could draw a line across the screen and bounce a ball at some bricks, and that game became Smashy Brick. And we just kind of took the prototype that we made in that one weekend, which we were like, okay, this is cool, this is fun, and went all the way with it and shipped it on iOS and Android. And that probably took a year and a half or so. Do you guys know about Smashy Brick? I've talked about it at club in the past, so if you're an OG, you might know about that one. But that one did decently well. I think we kind of didn't have the best monetization model for that game. Like, it wasn't like those mobile games that just rake in $1 billion. But we saw some success with the downloads, and overall it was just like, wow, this game dev stuff is cool and possible. So from there, I was just like, this is what I want to do. After that, towards when I was graduating, I met this guy Reed at a like local convention where I was showing off Smashy Brick. We started a studio, Top Stitch Games, while I was like wrapping up my HCDE major. And I hated school, guys. I do not like academics. I'm not about it. And that major is whack. So if you're considering it, I'm just saying it's whack. You'll make a lot of money if you if you have that degree and use that degree. But I chose not to. And I guess on the way out of college, we were just spinning up a game studio and trying to like actually like hustle for it, And what hustling for it looks like for a small indie studio, for us it meant contract work, and that makes a lot of sense for people who don't have any money or connections or anything, right? Like, but have the skill to make and ship a video game. So we started doing contract work. We made a game for PETA. No, we made like a VR experience for PETA, the People's like Society for Animals. I don't know what it stands for. But basically, it was this VR game where you're like looking at a baby cow be separated from its mother, and it's actually really sad. But that was like one of the random things that we did for money. And at one point, we were like, let's make an indie game. Let's make it our original game, right? Like every studio when you're starting out, you want to have some cash coming in from contracts, but then actually, the whole point is to make your own games, obviously. And that's when Kalen comes in. He at the time was in Game Dev Club working on a really cool prototype about a tank that could jump in the air, flip upside down, and shoot the ground to propel itself into the sky.
Hey, read text chat, by the way. There's people
Read
talking.
text chat? There's people. Oh shit! I didn't know that. Is there anything I should answer? No, people are just spamming the brick emote.
There's just Jose erasure happening here.
Jose erasure
for it.
Jose, I made Jose do a lot of the work on the cow game. That's the Jose erasure. Sorry, Jose. But yeah, long story short, we made Treadnoughts. And well, dude, Kalen, this is why I didn't want you to talk. I'm totally off my game now. Kalen, what is there interesting to say about Treadnoughts? What are the takeaways?
It was pretty fun. It was really fucking hard, and it didn't really make us a lot of money.
No, it did not make us a lot of money. We probably broke even on it. But that's like 2 years of dev. And at that point, it was the end of, let's say, 2018. We were doing Treadnoughts, and on the way out of Treadnoughts, we were like, okay, we're out of money. We need to do contract work again. But we were super lucky to get a contract with Mixer, RIP Mixer, Microsoft's streaming platform, to make like a like Darkest Dungeon style game, but with streaming integrated, so you can actually take chat into the game as the streamer and like have them be your party members. Is actually a pretty cool concept. But Mixer shit canned it and then shit canned themselves. So by the end of the year, we were like, well, what's the next move? So at that point, for various reasons, Kalen and I broke off and started a new studio called AgroCrab. And our thesis behind AgroCrab was that we want to make indie games, and we don't want to have to do contract work. We don't want to, but we want to be sustainable, because making Treadnoughts was like really stressful because we didn't know if it was going to make money, and we had no money, and we need money. So every decision for the game had a lot of stakes behind it, and it just made the day-to-day operations really stressful, as you can imagine. So one of our big thoughts with the new studio was, okay, how can we get money while also making the games that we want to make? And that's where publishers come in. That when you want to do that, you get a publisher. A publisher is someone who funds your game and handles a lot of things for you, like marketing problems and production problems to ship your game. So think Devolver Digital, who's like a real publisher, like Gearbox, Microsoft is a publisher, but in our case it was Team 17. And yeah, they basically allowed us to work on Going Under for 2 years and get to the point we are today, where it's shipped. I'm going to back up a little bit because I want to talk about how we got the publisher, and then that's basically the last thing I want to say. Yeah, we basically started in January, me and Caleb. We were just like, I don't know how, we were just like, we just figured out we wanted to make a game about startups because of people like Tyler from previously in the story. I actually lived with him for a couple of years, and with a lot of other tech bros, and they would just talk about tech bro stuff all day, and there were like 3 startups running out of our house, and there was just like a lot of that world I was like completely submerged in, even though I kind of, as someone in a more creative artsy fartsy field, I kind of thought we were above it, and it was just so ridiculous, right? So there was a lot of humor in the startup world that I felt like could be a premise for something. And once we figured out that, like, okay, in this universe, when a startup goes out of business, all the employees there like devolve into monsters, and the office like turns into a dungeon. We were like, okay, we have a video game. So that was a really cool moment. That is the premise for Going Under, our roguelike dungeon crawler, by the way. So if you haven't seen it, go check out Going Under. I'm sure someone's posting it in the no mic chat, which I stopped looking at. Oh, there it is. Yeah, thanks, Galen. But yeah, it's like the start of 2019, and we're just like, okay, GDC, the Game Developers Conference, is 2 months away, and that's where the whole industry comes together to San Francisco to talk about games, talk games industry, and make business connections, right? So we had 2 months to basically get a prototype together for this game. And we did. We just worked on it, made a basic skeleton vertical slice of Going Under, which just has like, you can talk to Marv, you can have a dialogue interaction, and then go into the dungeon. And it's a pretty bare bones dungeon where you can pick up a few items, defeat a few enemies, and then the boss fight. But for what it's worth, like that was a super like real prototype of what our game is. If you look at that prototype to what our game is today, it's super similar. We really managed to set expectations for it well. But yeah, we brought that to GDC. We were super lucky because we made a tweet about it back when our Twitter didn't really have any followers, and the tweet and it showed off our game and our concept, just like a short video of the game, and it got like 2,000 likes, which was great because then I could email every publisher and be like, hey, check out this new game we're working on. You want to talk at GDC? And a lot of them got back to me. So we ended up having like 7 meetings at GDC. We talked to Devolver, Raw Fury, Humble Bundle, and it was really our first time pitching the publishers. But we had a PowerPoint ready and just did like a gauntlet of a week talking to every single publisher that we could about our game. And I remember very vividly our meeting with Devolver on Wednesday, because they were like a publisher we really wanted to talk to, right? And if you've seen their games, obviously they're a huge publisher. Fall Guys came out this year. They have a fun, edgy brand. They're really cool. So Wednesday, Kalen and I are like walking into the Devolver dungeon, which is like this spot that they rent out for GDC. We go into the bottom of this hotel, and we're just like waiting there for someone to come talk to us. And the person that we wanted to talk to like wasn't there. So we ended up like having to talk to someone else, and we were just like, oh my god, we're just so not ready for this. Everything is not going according to plan. Really nice lady we ended up talking to, but we talked to her like in the lobby, not in the meeting room. So we just kind of had to like do our best to get through our pitch. She was, smiling and nodding along with it, but it really wasn't the best environment for it. Like someone mid-pitch like grabbed her attention. Someone else at Devolver like took her away to fix a problem with the eShop, and then she came back and was like, sorry guys. So we could kind of tell that maybe we weren't the top priority, and yeah, they did end up I don't know, we left that meeting feeling not that stoked about it. And then we didn't get published by anyone we talked to at GDC because we just filled out Team 17's like online form to like, hey, you have a game to pitch, please just fill out a Google form. And that actually carried us to the finish line. So GDC was a big waste of time. And that's the moral of the story. But yeah, we're fast forward 2 years. We're done with our game. We're putting out a DLC. We haven't really made any money because how publishers work is that they give you money and then take all the profits from the game. But we were able to make the game we wanted to make ultimately, and that's pretty cool. And now we're in a much better spot to make the next game. So that's what we're gonna do. Yay. Oh, and then the pandemic happened and we had to finish the game from home. But that's okay. A lot of people in worse positions.
How important would you say Twitter was in all of this?
Dude, Twitter is super important, I'd say. I think it's not the end-all be-all. but if you want to successfully be a developer, you need social media because you need other people to see your game. So if it's not Twitter, maybe it's Reddit, maybe it's TikTok for you Zoomers. I don't know what the TikTok scene looks like for game dev, but it might pop off. I think obviously Twitter was super important in getting us that first kind of bump on our game, and now we have 13K followers that will be there for the next game, and that's really important. And we've invested in it. We hired a community manager, Lulu, about a month before release, and she's been great ever since. She's really funny. She keeps our social media engagement up. She makes content and really just care about what we put forward into the world, because otherwise I think most game devs' instinct is to put their head down, go in their hidey hole, and just dev, right? Like that's what we're all here to do. That's what we wanted, and that's what we most enjoy doing. But it's really important to kind of have that outwards facing marketing, I guess.
What would you say? Like, what other aspects of running a business got in the way of things, right? Because you have marketing, you have trying to get published, right? But
yeah,
taxes and employees.
Oh yeah, dude. So running a game dev studio is a business, so there are a lot of things that need to be done. I take on most of those responsibilities to basically just shield the team from them, because it's not stuff anyone really wants to do. But there's taxes, pay your taxes, payroll, and contracts. So when you bring people onto your team, you need to pay them. You need to write a contract that they'll agree to. There's publisher relations. So if you do have a publisher or anyone who is supporting your game, you have to communicate with them, and that's a lot of time and effort, right? You have to send emails and get on calls. And our publisher is in fucking Britain, so we need to wake up early so that we can actually be on a proper time zone relationship with them. And that's a lot of stuff. What else is there that is... You need to do budgeting for your project. That's a whole topic. And you have to do release management. So it's obviously something that console people can help with, but you have to make sure your game comes out on platforms and fill out all the, just all the bubbles on the Steam backend to make it run properly. All that stuff.
How much effort is that to manage all the different platforms? How much extra effort is it to port to Switch, for example, if you're using Unity, which I assume you are?
Yeah. So in Unity, thankfully, there's a port to Switch button integrated, and it makes it really easy. No, there's no such thing. Yeah, real talk. It's cost us about 6 figures to port to all 3 platforms, because we decided not to self-port this time. We went with a porting studio, who's someone who can actually port your game. Obviously, not obviously, but when you put a game on another platform, you have to do different things to get it up and running. There are certain code paradigms that maybe it doesn't support, or certain graphics shader things that it doesn't support. Or in the case of the Nintendo Switch, it might just not be powerful enough to run all the the graphics you want or something. You have to down-res your game. You have to optimize your game. Even the Xbox and PS4 are gonna lag if your game's not optimized. You have to do, and this is all before actually dealing with Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo. You have to go through compliance on these platforms. So that means are all your let's say controllers, right? You have controller prompts that are like accurate to the platform and like acceptable. Like, are you using the right terminology for left stick and right stick in 14 different languages? That's Kalen's personal hell that we have to go through. Yeah, it's left stick in one platform, left joystick in another platform, just and then in 14 different languages. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. What else is there? Yeah, I mean, let's say you're doing multiplayer, right? You have to handle things like controllers disconnecting and reconnecting. Online multiplayer is a whole nother nightmare that's like not even worth attempting for most studios. Yeah, just compliance with the platform and making sure it's bug-free and seamless is a lot of work. And we started it, I think, in April, and it took us till the absolute finish line of us shipping in September 24th to get all our platforms ready. And we still had bugs. We shipped with bugs, and it sucked. And it took us another 2 months. Like, literally, last week, we were able to get our first patch on consoles that fixed, like, extremely bad bugs that would soft lock the whole game. Like, if you would go into a minecart, you wouldn't be able to exit it. So really not fun stuff to ship on console, because once it's out, you know? It's really difficult. Is it worth it? It can be. We've seen our Switch sales match our Steam sales, so that's really good. But PS4 and Xbox sales generally do a lot worse, depending on the game. But most indie titles will see a lot worse performance on those platforms because, you know, they have a more hardcore AAA audience. So no, we haven't seen a return on our investment on Xbox and PS4. What we're looking for on those fronts is to get on the Game Pass or PlayStation Plus platforms, because generally how those agreements work is that Microsoft or Sony will just hand you a big bag of cash so that they can give your game away for free. So that's really good for developers and for the players. But yeah, consoles, it's hard, but you know, who doesn't want their game on console?
Yeah. How does the Humble Bundle work?
Similar. You just talk to Humble, see if you can get in a bundle. If Humble's giving your game away for free, they'll give you a bag of cash. If they're putting you in a bundle and selling it, you get a percentage of the bundle revenue.
I don't want to feel like I feel like you guys are all free to ask questions. Like,
Yeah, please.
Please.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's talking?
It's me, Nalud.
Oh, no.
So, yeah. So, going on is your first game, right? Does your publisher expect?
No. Well, first game as Aggro Crab. Maybe third shipped game. Sorry, I don't know what you mean by that question, so I'm just trying to like.
Oh, okay. But
yeah.
Going Under is the game that's funded by publishers, or was Aggro
Yeah.
Crab also funded by publishers?
So I'm not sure if I get the question, but we get funding for our project, not for our company.
Okay.
So yeah, so if you think of like venture capital startups, like Silicon Valley stuff, right? Like those are people investing in a company for shares in the company and stock and all that stuff, right? But for us, it's on a per project basis. For most indie studios, that's how you're going to operate. So what you'll do is you'll say, hey publisher, we're asking for, you know, this much money up front to be delivered to us in X amount of milestones. So for each milestone that we complete on the game production, they will give us a percentage of the full investment. And in exchange for that, they'll get a percentage of the revenue from the game. So they're just funding the development of the game, right? For some of the profit. And in between when your game launches, there's a period called recoup, where the investor will have different terms for the split between the revenue split between each party before they've broken even on their investment. So how that works for a lot of people is it'll be 100% for them until they break even. So until Going Under sells enough copies for Team 17 to break even on their investment, we won't see a penny from the profit. And that's a situation that, that's the situation we're in. That's the situation a lot of studios are in, because the game costs a lot of money to make. And hopefully we'll leave that situation soon, but that's just the reality sometimes. Not every game is going to blow the hell up and be the next Among Us, I guess would be the relevant example.
Yeah.
But
So
you can be sustainable even without a hit and work towards the next game that could be a hit. Roll the dice again, right?
yeah. So how far away would you say Go Crab is from breaking even? Like 50%, 75% of the way there?
Sure, let's say 50%. That's that's probably pretty close. It's hard to say because a lot of our numbers are kind of obfuscated, but and there's stuff I can't talk about, but
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hopefully we'll see profit next year, but we're not counting on it. We just have to work under the assumption that that's never going to come, and in the meantime, what else can we do, right?
Yeah. I had another question if no one else has a question.
Shoot.
Yeah. Before you guys start a project, what do you do to determine if there's market demand for that game?
Okay, so we're not the best at that. I think like we do. I guess this is the first game as a studio, right? So this game Going Under, we didn't really make it for the market. Like we kind of made it for ourselves, but we did know that we wanted it to be, a fun game, an action-packed game, and a roguelike, because we thought like, oh, okay, roguelikes are popular. There's an audience for that. So, there's a certain amount that anyone can do to just say like, okay, what's hot right now? What's selling on Steam? Go to the Steam top 50 bestsellers. See what influencers are playing. Influencers are playing Among Us. Can you fast follow Among Us with the next big multiplayer game? I don't know. Maybe they just want to play Among Us, and it's a fluke, right? And if that's a fluke, what games are more consistently profitable? There's data on Gamma Sutra. You can see the breakdown of what genres are most popular. Action roguelike games are tiny compared to 4X strategy games like Civilization. Maybe that's the genre worth investing in. Horror games are really big. And then you can kind of weigh those options against like, okay, what's feasible for one person to do or a small team to do? Can you make an online multiplayer game? Again, probably not. Well, I mean, maybe you can, because Innersloth is 3 people and they were able to do it, right? But can you make a battle royale? Probably a bit harder. Can you make an MMO? No. So, can you make a walking simulator? Probably. So you can kind of see what you're interested in versus what's possible versus what's marketable, and figure out something from there. In our case, we kind of, and I think this is AgroCrab's thing, we kind of start more with our premise and our story and our world, and try to find mechanics that work for it. But our strong suit is that stuff. It's, the art and narrative and sound all mixed together. So it's kind of like, yeah, I mean, that, just add that to the Venn diagram of, what's capable, what are you good at, and the other parts of marketability.
Yeah. So you said that Team 17 handles all of the marketing for you, right?
Yeah.
Do they produce the trailers as well?
They do produce the trailers, but that's kind of dependent on your contract and who you go with. Some people won't handle your trailers. Some people will outsource your trailers, but they handle trailers in-house. There's no right answer. It's just like who's going to do the trailer.
Okay,
And other. Go ahead.
Because if you were producing your own trailers, I was going to ask the technical question of like how game studios manage to record the trailers in 60 FPS. Because I know like when I record trailers, my computer isn't able to handle running OBS and Unity at that kind of frame rate to record such a smooth trailer.
Yeah, I mean that's a consideration, right? Like if you're making games at a professional level, then you should probably invest in the hardware that can handle everything you're going to need. I think most people. I say that with like totally hypocritically because my machine's like 6 years old and can't record 60 FPS, and that's why they do it.
I see.
I have a question about something you said earlier. So you said that you paid a dedicated studio to port your game, right?
Yeah.
But also that you just spent last week, or like you just released a while ago, a patch. Did you have to write a patch for the game that they ported, or are they liable if it is broken when they port it?
No, I mean really, if there's a bug, like everyone's understanding, there's going to be bugs, and the bug was our fault. So how it works if you guys have used how it works technically, if you guys have used source control, version control, like GitHub, you should whatever. Yeah, we'll have our branch for the game, and then there'll be an offshoot for the console branches, for the console version of each game. So we can keep pushing changes to the game if we do an update or bug fixes, and they can take our changes for the console versions, right? So when we did a patch, that was mostly us fixing things and them just kind of taking it in and making sure they work on the So
it's like a rebase, right?
Yeah.
So but like hypothetically, if their version, if they have a specific like Xbox bug that doesn't
Mhm.
like that they made, right? Then whose fault is it, or who fixes it? Are they liable? Do they have to continue to support it, etc.?
That's a great question. I don't know the specifics because I know our contract says like, yeah, if there's a bug, we gotta fix it. But it ends up being situational, where it's like, okay, is the bug severe? Like, who's gonna pay for it if we need to patch this bug? Like, there's things that are gonna slip through the cracks, and you just kind of have to weigh like, is it worth everyone's time to fix it? You can, so all the better to get that stuff in writing if you are gonna end up having a external team handle stuff for you. But since our porting studio was kind of our friend, they actually were really they were really like they put themselves forward to help us with the patch and try to get it out as fast as possible. Unfortunately, like these things just take time no matter what, even if they did get it done pretty fast and efficiently.
That's cool.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
I have a question related to what you would do after publishing a game. So for context, I just published a game on Steam in early access.
Mhm.
And I think like most games, it sold a decent amount at the start and there's exponential decay in how much we're selling over time.
Mhm.
So how would you determine whether or not the game still has a lot of potential to sell more if you do a lot of updates and more content? And how do you tell when to give it up?
That is a really good question. Well, what I would say is that even with going under, it's like not a financially sound decision to keep supporting it. It's not a good decision. We're doing it because we have big egos, and we want to give the fans kind of one more update for the game before we move on. and hopefully breathe some life into it. But you know, if your game isn't as big as Going Under, but you have your own publishing rights and don't have to pay recoup to anyone, then the math is probably a lot simpler, right? It's you can take a look at your sales and say, okay, is it worth it to keep working on this? How much do I want to work on this? But in all likelihood, right, like an update isn't going to see much traction for your game unless you have enough social media and marketing ability to direct people towards your update. Now we're investing we're putting out a new trailer, getting like an animated freaking 20 seconds of trailer. We really want to revive this thing for a bit, but if you're not going to do that full push, like it most likely isn't a good idea to update it. Obviously, do what you want, but if you're just thinking about profits, it's probably better to work on something new, and you'll learn more.
Okay, thanks.
What about?
So what do you guys? Oh yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
So Going Under has a lot of like character and charm. How did you like manage balancing like adding juice to it and like when was like you're like, okay, this is a good amount of juice, or like when were you like, oh, we should add more juice for a while? I don't know. What's your thought process?
So for me, adding juice is kind of like what's the least amount of effort I could do for the most amount of game. Because I think with Going Under especially, my philosophy with it was let's just make everything easy to do, right? Like all the assets in Going Under take like half an hour to make each one, or like 5 minutes to make each one, right? Like look at the cactus. It's just a cylinder with some spikes, right? But when you put everything together, it looks pretty nice because you've got all these cohesive elements that are layered on top of each other. So you, so that kind of goes hand in hand with the juice, right? Like, okay, let's just put some screen shake on each hit. That's easy. Let's put a particle effect and a sound effect on each hit, and each interaction. If you can cover your bases and just have each interaction have a reaction with visual juice and audio juice, then your game will appear polished as a whole. If something disappears and just like blinks out instead of particle system explosions out, or however you want to do stuff, your game will appear unpolished, and you don't want that. You want to look pro. You want to trick people into thinking you're a good dev. That's what we do.
Can you tell us a bit about the rendering process for Going Under? Like, what kind of shaders you used and just what the whole rendering process is like?
Yeah, sure. So I use Amplify Shader Editor, first of all, because writing shaders is pretty tricky, and there's not a lot of good information on it out there. But I totally recommend Amplify to anyone who wants to get into shaders. Shader Forge is another good one. And Unity's Shader Graph is an option. But it lets you like link nodes together visually, and it actually helps you learn how shaders work as you're working through it, which is really nice. But the question was, how do Going Under shaders work? Let's see, what's the best way to answer that? I mean, I kind of started with like, what am I trying to accomplish with the visual style, right? And in Going Under's case, it was like those noodle people illustrations that every big tech company uses for their art. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So to get that in Going Under, I needed like kind of a flat cell shading look to the game, where like the light and shadow of that cell shading has noise in between. And here, I'll show you what I actually used. as like my design Bible. It's Facebook's like original like design, like redesign for when they started using these new people. It's called the Allegria style. And this is actually where I saw like, oh, they use noise on stuff, and that will actually translate well to 3D. So I just did that, and it ended up looking good, and we rolled with it. Maybe I can give a little bit more of a technical look into it if I share my screen. Combat test. I'll need to set it up though, so give me 1 second.
The amplified shader tool you mentioned sounds a lot like shader graph. Is there a reason you guys didn't roll with shader graph?
At the time, it wasn't as flexible because it kind of just rolled out. I still think it's. I haven't tried it in a while, so I can't say that I still think it sucks. But yeah, Amplify just let me do more custom stuff. So
Did you guys
Yeah.
bake the lighting for the furniture and whatnot?
No, nothing's baked.
Oh,
So I'm going to show you actually some stuff. Let me. Can you guys see my project with Jackie in it?
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. Now, everyone, feel free to stop me and ask about some of these more technical things. But I'm just going to show you a little bit about how this all works. So for Jackie's like shading, as you can see, it's cell shaded. But where are her colors coming from? We actually use a very custom solution for that. So if I open up Jackie's Blender model, you can kind of see her UVs. Let's see now. So here's Jackie, and if I go to her UVs, they look like this. And UVs are, I guess, like her model being unwrapped and put on a sheet that tells it how to color it, right? It tells the texture what to look like. Now, why do her UVs look like this? Why are they all in these neat little grids? Because we use the same texture for every object in the game, and it looks like this. It's a palette. Can everyone see this? Maybe I can pull it up big.
Yep.
Yeah, so this has all the colors in the game that we use. And those are run through some more filters like ambient light and gradients to get the look we have. But ultimately, it just comes down to this and a shadowed version. Joblin. So we actually have two palettes here. See, notice how this one's darker. We actually have two palettes that are plugged into this shader, and it decides whether to use the light one or the dark one by whether it's in light or in shadow. So for Jackie here, you can see her hair has a light part and a shadow part. And, you know, most games just calculate your shadow. They don't have a separate color for shadow. That's ridiculous. They calculate it and just make it darker with math. But in this game, since we're drawing from such a designerly flat illustration style, it made sense to want to have super close precision or super super authorship towards each color in the game. And I set up a tool that lets me change these things really easily. So if I wanted her hair shadow color to be blue, I can edit it in real time with this tool I set up. And I can edit her light color. And I can change her skin color. And stuff like that. And
This is so cool.
I know, this is my favorite thing. And this just makes making assets super easy because all you have to do is put down the colors on that grid in Blender, and then you've got your color done. We have textures too that you can add, but those are few and far between. and it just makes it so that as an indie studio where we just have to make things fast, we're able to do that.
Wow.
You mentioned.
Last thing, before you go, each dungeon actually has a slightly different version of the palette, so that they can have slightly different moods and aesthetics. And that's how our game works. Oh, and then it just broke. Sometimes it breaks because it's out of memory, but then you just bring it back. Ta-da!
Nice. So you mentioned using ambient occlusion in your levels. If you don't bake the AO, wouldn't your game take a performance hit?
Yes, but so ambient occlusion, for everyone, is this effect. I could turn it. Oh no, I can't. You guys can't. There. So sorry. Let me just explain AO for everyone who might not know. It's this kind of shadow that exists in corners, and that's just a real-world light phenomenon, and it makes things pop in your video game when you have it. It kind of grounds objects nicely. And there's kind of two ways to get ambient occlusion in your game. You can either have real-time in screen space as a post effect, or you can bake it into your environment texture. So this game has it as a screen space post effect in real time because we have so many objects that aren't baked that are loose. You can't. Baking implies that you're setting it that way forever. So if you're making this beautiful environment that has a lot of specific nooks and crannies, then you can do that. But since we just have a bunch of junk that flies around, it made way more sense to not bake it. It does cost us a performance hit. We actually had to switch our ambient occlusion solution on the Nintendo Switch to a Team 17 custom solution. So that was lucky that they had one, but it doesn't look as good.
So you guys are using the HDRP render pipeline then, right?
Nope, we used the standard render pipeline. I don't know anything about render pipelines.
Oh, okay. So you're not using URP or HDRP.
I think, isn't URP the default?
URP used to be the lightweight render pipeline. If you guys have the standard render pipeline, then that's the old version.
Okay, I see. Yeah. Here, back to camera. That's enough. That's enough looking at our secrets.
Holy crap! We gotta invite you back for a talk just on that type of stuff.
Well, my answer was I don't know. I've never used render pipelines, but I can talk about art direction and that sort of stuff. Happy to.
That's really cool.
There was a question in the chat from Gideon. What was the inspiration for the characters in Going Under? I know you kind of answered it, but you could talk about the specific characters.
A lot of them were kind of based on people we know. So I mean, artistically, I kind of just went with I started with random noodle people ideas and went from there. But Ray, the founder, is all the founder friends I know who kind of have too big a head, and Swamp is just based on a lot of our college friends. I'm sure if you guys have played the game, someone like Swamp. And Tappy is some yuppie finance friends I have that went on to be consultants at big companies. So all kind of inspired from life. Kara is Kalen, the grumpy programmer.
So on the AgroCrab's website is 3 other employees. Were they your college friends or did you hire them?
Who's all on the AgroCrab website?
I see you and Kaylin, and then I see 3 other people in the back.
Oh, those guys. Yeah. So, okay, yeah. Just our team on Going Under, I guess. From left to right, there is Sam, our gameplay designer and developer. We brought him on in the summer as soon as we got funding, and he kind of just did like a lot of gameplay stuff, making a lot of items and enemies and bosses, like the meat of the game. And then behind him is Joanna. She was on the art team. She did environment and prop assets, just making a lot of the level elements and weapons. Then to her right is Felix. He's our composer and sound designer for the game. And then to his right is Kaylin. And then I'm in the front. We were also joined by Luis, who's a remote member of the team in Brazil. He did the graphic design and 2D assets, like most of them. And we are joined by Lulu, most recently our community developer, who requested her own bubble on the website so that she could get verified on Twitter.
Nice. So these are all people you recruited externally. You didn't know them beforehand in college.
Oh, sorry. I knew Felix from high school. So he worked on Smashy Brick and Tridnauts. We knew Joanna from our previous project Trip Troop, and yeah, Sam and Luis and Lulu we met along the way. We hired them.
Nice.
And
That's
when
a
we
big
hire,
team.
yeah, it was a big team. Most of them have gone their own way now that the project's over, but that's kind of what happens. Unless you're Among Us or Fall Guys, then your team gets bigger.
Yeah.
So in Going Under, there's the me in my garage with like the car, that reference there. How do you determine when like a reference won't get dated, or like how far out do you plan in advance for like putting in references?
We don't give a fuck.
Yeah, we're what Kalen said. Honestly, like we put in a lot of references that we know will get dated, and we don't really care. Like there's a skill in Going Under called yeet. That's gonna be an old meme, and there's memes that are older than yeet. But since Going Under is such a game of the times, it's a very timely game. We're comfortable putting jokes in like that. A lot of people want to make timeless games, but that's not our style, at least not on this one. So any references we want, we put in, except the references that we're trying to put in now, where we're giving Jackie a Link costume, because we're apparently not allowed to do that.
Not even for like the Switch version?
I mean, not without Nintendo's approval, which we're probably not going to get.
Did you guys try doing paid marketing for Going Under and Aggro Crab?
Yeah, we did. Team 17 ran a few $1,000s of paid marketing on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. It's hard to tell if it works. I kind of think it's like doesn't. I mean, it'll get you more impressions on your game, like it'll literally work, but it's really hard to say. I wouldn't do it myself, probably, other than maybe a few $100 here and there. It's not the strategy that's going to make your game successful. Ultimately, that's going to come down to organic marketing and whether or not your game's good. And influencers are really big, but you don't want to pay them because they cost a lot of money.
Speaking of influencers, what is it like working with an influencer? Is it like you just hit them up, go like, hey, I've got a game I want you to play, and they just send it? Or like, is there more that goes into it?
Not a ton of them played it, and that's mostly because when we launched Among Us and Hades were out, people were playing those games. But there's always going to be a game that's out that's people are more interested in your game, unless you get really lucky. Or maybe our game just wasn't a great fit for them, or maybe our game sucks. I don't know. But no, I don't know. It's really hard to get an influencer's attention because kind of think about it from their perspective. People are hitting them up all the time, They're constantly flooded with social media DMs and that sort of thing. And probably the last thing they want to see from someone is self-promotion, right? So it's really, really hard to get influencers' attention. You kind of want to incept the idea into them that they should play your game. Yeah, I haven't figured that one out yet.
And kind of on the flip side, have you ever watched any influencers play your game? Have you ever watched some like YouTube videos of gameplay?
Yeah, it's really fun. It's like the best thing because you get to kind of see how they react to the key moments of your game, the funny moments, and see how chat reacts. And for us, it's been really positive. We've had a few big streams of it around launch, especially, and the game didn't break, so that was cool.
Very
How
early
many
on.
hours?
Oh, yeah, Caleb?
Early on, one of the big streamers that played it was RT Gaming.
Mhm.
I tried to get Northern Line was gonna play it because I'm homies with them, but he like had a child the week that we launched, which was very rude.
Oh, yeah. Hey, are you gonna hit him up when our DLC's out?
Yeah, of course.
Cool. We gotta get the NL.
How many hours per day?
Smash Brew.
Go ahead. Sorry.
How many hours per day were you guys crunching towards release?
I don't know, not a ton. We would maybe. Did we ever crunch like ridiculously hard on Going Under? Besides now or
Besides right now.
besides right now?
We're currently crunching the hardest we have on the project.
Yeah, we actually did a decent job.
I would say, yeah, there were definitely like long hours here and there, but there was no extended crunch period.
Yeah, so guys, crunch, that's an important topic. So here's the thing about crunch. You guys are all young and energetic, and you're gonna crunch. You're better at crunching than anyone, but don't do it. Like seriously, you gotta treat yourself well. It's the most tempting thing. Even crunching for yourself, right, is a different story from crunching for someone else. I've been lucky enough to work in indie games, so I don't know what crunching for someone else is like. It must suck. But a lot of you guys are really liable to crunch for your own game, to spend all day and all night working on your game, and it's really unhealthy. I think for us, we on Treadnoughts, we definitely crunched. We crunched for like a month straight, working 12-hour days, 6 days a week, and that like broke a part of me. Like I can't do that anymore. Which is, I guess, good because I don't do that anymore. Even now, I don't work weekends, or I try not to, and I try to take breaks. And you really just need to like, get up and stretch and like do other things and relax, or else you're gonna have game dev brain, and you're gonna have just a lot of more anxiety and stress than you really need to go through. So yeah,
like,
treat yourself well.
It's like all about the balance. Like everybody pulls late nights sometimes, or like works long hours. There's like a big difference between that and like having a long-term period of crunch where you really kind of are consistently spending too much time on one project.
Yeah. A game jam is different from like a month of crunch.
Yeah. And even like a few weeks of crunching on someone else's behalf is a very soul-sucking experience. But it's like, that's not to say that we don't work long hours sometimes because we're motivated to.
Yeah. And
it's all about balance. But I mean, like doing it long term is just like very bad for your mental health at best and your physical health at worst.
Yep. And then I guess I'll add that like as if you're self-employed and you have your own studio to worry about, it's very hard to separate yourself from that. Because I wake up every day, and if I check my phone or go on Twitter, someone will say something about Going Under, right? Like I just have to think about my game and my work at all waking hours, basically. So just be prepared for that if you're literally just gonna go down the indie game dev route. But yeah, it can be a lot. You gotta really work to. You have to make a conscious effort to kind of do other things.
Do you find that your motivation to like really push the game forward diminishes when it's funded by publishers, since you don't have as large of a financial stake in the final outcome anymore?
Oh no, it's way better, dude. It's better in every way. Our motivation, because our motivation is the same. We still want to make a great game. Maybe our motivation to like it's all bad motivation, the kind of motivation that comes from having everything hinge on this project. Whereas if you kind of have a safety net, in my opinion, that gives you the freedom to make the game you want to make, and make better art ultimately, or better play experiences. So do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, being a starving artist is bullshit. I think anyone who
Yes, that's the
anyone who glorifies either overworking or like the stress that comes with like operating without a safety net has probably never done it.
Yeah, or like being a depressed artist. Like there's no romanticizing that, you know. It just kind of sucks. And or like Van Gogh chopping off his ear. That was like, this sucks. It doesn't make him a better artist. It probably made him a worse artist.
I'd imagine that finding a publisher to pay for the next project would be almost as stressful, right?
It's exciting for us. I think we're not super worried about it. Like, if you can do it once, you can do it again, because you've proven yourself. So we're not super stressed out about it, or I'm not personally. It's just something. It's just the next thing we gotta do.
It's also like I realize this is an unhelpful thing for most of the people in here, but like the hardest part about this industry, much like most other creative industries, is like breaking into it.
Yes.
Like if you find the wherewithal and the resources to make a video game that slaps, even if it gets overlooked and it is not like your dream game or like the smash hit, like things started changing for us like pretty quickly once we released Dreadnoughts. Like people were just more willing to talk shop with us on like funding our projects, like as soon as we started AgriCrab. And like now that Going Under is out, it's also going to be very different for us.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's an important topic, getting your foot in the door for you guys. What does that look like? What are ways you can actually get closer to that? Let's just count them. Ship a video game, put it out into the world, put it up on itch.io or Steam. Have social media so that when people see your game, they can follow you, or when you are followed, you can tell people about your game, and grow that social media. So when you're working on a game, post about it, post a GIF, see what other people are doing, what's popular. Obviously, don't just be, obviously keep your own creativity. Don't just follow trends, but there are ways to get attention. I think our art style was in a lot of ways influenced by what other people were doing, like really bright colors and abstract shapes. Like I knew that people would be interested in that, based on what I saw other people would be interested in. So yeah, like get the if you want to get into the industry, you have to look at the industry. You have to have an eyeball into it. So follow other people that are in the industry. Follow your favorite developers, because a lot of them are on Twitter and they like to talk about game dev. And then network locally. You're doing a great job networking here. I'm a resource, So talk to me, talk to Kalen, talk to your peers in the club, because
Sorry,
those
kinda
connections.
early.
Sorry.
Sorry, I'm talking in a Zoom call right now. That was awkward.
Oh, you're good. Yeah. So yeah, make those connections with your peers because they're the next generation of devs. You're not gonna like be able to make a connection with Tim Schafer. You don't know Tim Schafer. I don't know Tim Schafer. But maybe someone in this room is going to make the next big game. And you can mooch off them if you're friends. And then your foot's in the door. There you go.
I did have a question though. Unless you're done. Are you done?
I'm here all night.
Okay. So like I think I
You
have
have to cut me off.
okay. I think I have like a decent idea for like a game, and then I like open up the Unity project and then I see like a Unity default capsule and then I like close the project. Like I have no idea where to start like
Yeah.
with art and art direction and like making it look okay. Especially because I suck at it.
How big is your idea?
It's not super big. It's like meant to be like just like a project that you work on for like a little bit, just so you have something done, I guess.
Okay, I want to tell you your idea is probably still too big, but since I don't know what it is, take that with a grain of salt.
It
yeah, I
probably
mean,
is, but
that's what you want, right? You want the smallest version of it because if you're closing it, the project, that means you don't know what to do. Maybe there are too many things to do. So if you can make it so that there's one thing to do, then maybe it's doable, right? Do you can make a list. You can use a software like Asana or Trello to kind of write down everything you need to do for the game. That's what we do to manage our project. I think that's very important. But if
yeah, I guess
Is
I
it
just
either-
struggle with the art. Like the art is hard, or just like
Yeah.
making it look not bad.
Yeah. Do you have?
Art question.
Sorry.
Oh, I felt like it was less of an overall motivation question and more of like specifically like getting started on game art.
Okay, right on. Yeah. Sounds like that's the question. Game art's hard. Is it 2D or 3D?
Hopefully 3D.
3D? Do you have Blender?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, how much Blender do you know?
Very very basic Blender knowledge. I've
guess-
made the donut by the Blender guy.
Nice.
I made the donut.
I guess part of it is just like figure out the workflow, right? Like about every step of the process. How do you make something in Blender? How do you import it into Unity? How do you put a material on it with shading and texture and all that? How do you get it to move? Like, are all those questions answered?
Yeah, that's a good start. Thank you.
Yeah, and maybe it takes a tutorial, just running through a tutorial, and maybe that'll inspire you to do something, even if you don't know every single thing. Sometimes having limits on your creativity is what you need to be creative. Like, I feel like if I told you that's why game jams have prompts and themes, right? If you just have a blank Unity project, you're not going to know what to do. But if you only know how to do one thing, then maybe you'll get an idea for what to do.
I personally just outsource the artworks because I figured that I'm not going to be good at sound, programming, art, marketing, and all of that all at once. So I might as well just outsource that.
Outsource it. Get it on the asset store. Maybe someone else in Game Dev Club has the skills that you don't, and vice versa.
Yeah.
This is all good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've heard some people say that, hey, please wishlist my game on Steam and stuff like that. Does it help getting your game wishlisted by other people on Steam, like in any way in terms of like popularity or something?
Yeah, absolutely. So a wish list, I mean, a wish list itself is good because then someone will have it on the wish list. They'll be notified if the game comes out or goes on sale, or gets an update. But it also helps you in the algorithm. So Steam will show your game to more people if they see, oh, this game has a lot of wish lists, it must be popular, even if it's not out yet. So yeah, that's basically one of the only metrics you have for like, is my game popular and going to sell well on launch day, is how many wish lists you have. We had around 25,000 wish lists the day before launch, and then at launch it basically doubled to 50,000, and now we're staying at like 75,000. But only a small percentage of those wish lists actually convert to sales. I think it's like 5% or something stupid like that. Other people buy your game, but that's like wish list conversion on launch day. I don't know. Go to gamasutra.com. They'll give you the information.
Okay.
But yeah, it's pretty algorithm.
Even if you personally like don't care about your own Steam wishlist at all, wishlisting like indie games on Steam absolutely does help them achieve visibility. So it's always worth doing for people you want to support.
Yeah, and write reviews for people you want to support.
Reviews are
Really
literally the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
Reviews are so important on Steam, more so than like any other platform.
Yeah, if you guys have played Going Under, I really strongly ask that you review our game positively, hopefully, but that would help us a lot.
You got overwhelmingly positive recent reviews too.
I know, and if we hit 500 all reviews, then that will be overwhelmingly positive too, provided it stays above 95%.
Oh my gosh.
So we would love that.
I need to
That would blow my mind. Let's see, we're thinning out, so how do we go till 6:30? And we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for staying so long. I just it's been pretty steady, like above 20 for a while, so I just let it keep going.
I'm actually gonna peek and get back to work. But,
okay, see you in a bit.
Yeah.
Have a good one, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
See ya.
Yeah, I mean, this is fun for me. I like talking to you guys. I think it's important to like talk to people, give quote unquote mentorship, or just like engage with people whose lives suck because they're in quarantine.
Nick, this might be a candid question, but looking back, do you have any regrets about choosing the games industry as a career?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm super lucky, right? Super privileged that basically I've gotten to work on indie games that I wanted to make since leaving college. So I'm like it's just nice to be in control of your studio and destiny and all that stuff. It's nice to be self-employed for me. It's not for everyone. I don't like not having coworkers sometimes. Like it'd be nice to have more people to hang out with, because if I want to hang out with someone, I basically have to hire them. But I wouldn't call that a regret.
Do you find like the uncertainty and like I know the games industry is really competitive, right? And like a lot of game industry employees themselves aren't paid very well.
Yeah.
Like, do you find that to just like kind of weigh you down sometimes, or?
Yeah, it's a shame. I think it's different being indie because I don't get the like. It's no one's fault that I'm not paid well except myself. I think there's a lot of trouble with the industry that can get me down sometimes, but overall, it's just fun to be part of an industry that's so new, that has so much room to like make your mark on it and do something hot and different, and really just play the game, right? It's like it's exciting. Like we're a player in the games industry. We're putting out our stuff. Maybe it's good. I don't know. It's fun.
What's your favorite part of production? Do you like the early parts or quality?
Pre-production. Yeah, absolutely pre-production. It's the early parts where you can kind of just let your mind roam free are the best. Like, I'm personally not into like, I get so drained by just like making assets all day, all week, all year. Just like making the meat and potatoes of the video game. It's way more fun, I think, for most people to just like be in the phase where you're still figuring things out. Because for most games, right, you start off by figuring out like 90% of what the game's going to be, the levels you're going to need, all the characters, and then there's a phase where you just have to make it all. And then when you're out of that phase, you fix bugs and polish it, and you release. And that part sucks. It just sucks more as it goes on. And now we're doing post-release content, which sucks the most because your game's already done. So there's no like.
There's no better.
Yeah, but soon the process will start anew. 2021, baby.
Oh.
Oh.
A new year.
Yeah.
That'll be cool.
I have a question kind of similar to like, I guess it's not really similar, but how would you say like you factor in playtesting? How much time do you spend playtesting, and how does that kind of influence the direction of the game?
Yeah. We don't playtest nearly enough for how big of a game we made. I really think we had pretty bad processes for doing that. For a while, we were doing like every Thursday, we'd sit down together and do a playtest, and we would find so many issues that way with the fun and the gameplay, or with the bugs. But when the pandemic hit, like a lot of that fell apart because we weren't going into the office anymore. It was a lot harder to coordinate playtests, and sometimes playtesting by yourself like isn't something anyone wants to do. Because if I playtest by myself, I'm sitting here playing the game, and then like I have a conclusion that I reach. Maybe I die in an unfair way. I can't talk to the rest of my team that's watching it with me and be like, see, look at that. That was so unfair. Why don't we change it? Like, if no one else sees it, then I just have to like prove it to them, right? I have to like make an argument for it, and that's a lot of trouble and not as effective. But playtesting is super important. It's the most important thing, and no one does enough of it. Especially, but then there's another side of that. There's playtesting, and then like quality assurance (QA), testing for bugs. And that's something we're even worse at, and that's kind of a lesson for the future for us, which is that you need QA, and you need someone dedicated to it because no one on your team is going to be as dedicated as you need. Yeah.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions? As a reminder, we have 7 minutes, so if you have one question you've been waiting to give, fire.
There's a question, no mics. You can.
Oh, is there? Okay.
Are there? You probably had the thought of being a game dev early on, but did anything at UW influence you other than this club? Like, were there any classes that helped you pursue your career as a game developer? Good question. Honestly, I just like didn't really like. I've never been academic. I kind of just like got through my classes to get a degree. Like I don't know. Let's see. I guess a lot of UW influenced me like outside of class. Like I lived the college life, and that influenced me. But my classes, I mostly took gen ed and like some coding classes, and and then I went into my major in HCDE, which you'd think would be helpful because it's human computer interaction. I think the major stands for human centered design and engineering. So it's just like that sounds a lot like a video game, right? But it ended up being a really like scientific major, a lot of like research, and it just didn't really cross over to games as much as I initially hoped. I learned nothing. Go figure.
What kind of startups did your friends make?
So one of my buddies made a startup where he invented a garbage can with a screen on it, and it had like a weight sensor. So when you threw something away, it could trigger like something on the screen to happen, like, "Oh, you just recycled 0.05 pounds. You just saved this many trees. Good job." Or it can show an ad. So that was his startup. He had like so many garbage cans in our living room at all times. So definitely an influence. The garbage cans are in the game, in Fizzle, because we just had to include them. And then my other friends did like more boring stuff. I like to tell people about the garbage cans.
Okay.
Just
Maybe one more question. One more good one.
Oh, yeah. Someone else.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's related to any of the other stuff talking about recently. How do you decide what game ideas to work on? Because I have a lot of different game ideas, too many, and not enough time. So how do you prioritize?
Well, I think for us, right, like, I'm not actually someone with a lot of game ideas. But the ideas that we do have between me and Kaylin, we kind of just say, we try to get them as fleshed out as we can, right? Like, I think we have more to consider because we have to think like, okay, is this going to sell? Do we have the production to make this happen? But you have to consider those too, right? So ask yourself which of your games is the most possible to make. Because I know it's not all of them. I know that. And then just make one. That's not really helpful. But I don't know, just make the easiest, smallest one.
Then I guess as a follow-up to that, how do you stay motivated on one idea when you have a lot of other things you want to work on?
It's hard. I mean, again, like, I'm not someone with a ton of ideas, but I have one now that I want to make, and I'm stuck going under stuff. But you just have to do it. You have to, have the discipline. But for a lot of devs in your guys' positions, like, if you want to do that and just make a ton of games and jump from one thing to the next, my only advice is like finish what you started, because there's nothing that will give you experience and like advance you like actually shipping a project that's finished. Do that for every game you make, unless you find out really, really early that it's not going to work. Okay. That's probably the best advice there is. Ship your games. I pride myself on my ability above anything else to ship games in less than 2 years, because a lot of devs just like run into some shit along the way, And there it is.
Yeah.
Any
Awesome.
final thoughts? Anything? Thank you guys all for letting me do this. Let me blare at you.
Yeah, thank you. Honestly, like
No, thank you.
Yeah. Was it fun? Was it informative?
Super fun.
Okay, great. Yeah, great. I'm glad.
Good luck.
Yeah, I guess the last thing I want to say is like, I know that I know what it's like to be in your guys' shoes, to be just starting out, and have a lot of questions about video games that maybe I didn't get to answer in these 2 hours. So just know I'm around. Like, you can hit me up on Twitter, at SmashyNick, just DM me, or maybe Discord. I'm kind of around here too, and I will try my best. And just say you're from Game Dev Club, I'll try my best to like support you guys however I can, because I think it's really important, and you guys deserve better than college from home. So, you know, if I can help in any way, that would really make my day.
Appreciate it, man.
All right, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks
All
again.
right.
Thank you.
All right.
Later, everyone.
All right.
Yeah.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Good luck, everyone.
Bye.